when a homeless child shouted "Don't eat that," no one expected what would happen next. In the heat of an afternoon, the corner of the park was the meeting point of the elite of São Paulo. Between pruned trees and the murmur of a fountain, the restaurant was packed. Waiters in impeccable uniforms glided between the tables, balancing trays with gourmet dishes and freshly brewed coffees. The air smelled of warm bread and the sweet scent of flowers. But for a man, none of that mattered. At a central table sat Ricardo Albuquerque, a name synonymous with power and fortune. He built his empire from scratch, starting with real estate in his 20s and expanding into businesses that few dared to dream of. At 72, he displayed the confidence of someone who not only owned his world but perhaps the world of everyone around him. His impeccable suit and gold-rimmed glasses reflected a life of luxury. Even so, when looking at the menu, his movements were slow, almost hesitant. In front of him was Natalia, his much younger wife, a woman who looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. His black hair framed an impeccably made-up face with vibrant red lipstick. Every detail screamed elegance, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. She twirled a diamond bracelet on her wrist distractedly, with her attention fixed on the screen of her cell phone. Nearby, a boy was watching from outside the restaurant's fence. He was skinny for his age, with a sweatshirt that was too big on his thin body. His dark eyes jumped from table to table, analyzing dishes and pockets, looking for an opportunity. His name was Mateus, although no one in the restaurant knew him. His face was familiar. On that street, a homeless boy, always on the side of conversations and worries. Ricardo looked at his watch distractedly. Again, he said with a calm but firm voice. Natalia looked up and smiled without showing any affection. "I'm here," she replied sweetly. She put her hand to his. "You know how I love these lunches." Mateus' stomach growled. He approached his steps, almost silent, leaning on the fence of the patio. His eyes stopped at Ricardo's table. It was the kind of meal he had and seen up close for months. A white bowl of soup with fresh bread on the side and a glass of sparkling water. But then something strange happened while Ricardo adjusted his glasses and picked up his cell phone. Natalia's hand slid into her designer bag. Mateus saw her fingers close around a small bottle. He opened it with a casual movement, leaning her hand over the bowl. Steaming, the liquid mixed with the soup in an instant, disappearing as if it had never existed. Mateus held his breath. He froze, watching her stir the soup with a spoon. His expression was unchanged. Then she leaned towards Ricardo. Her voice was low but audible. "After all the work I've done, you're not going to ruin everything now." The boy blinked, unsure of what he had just witnessed. Was it real? Would such a perfect woman sitting in such an elegant place really be capable of doing that? Mateus couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. His heart was pounding as he ducked behind the fence. He didn't know what he had seen, but the coldness in the woman's words made him shiver. He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. No one else noticed. No one else was paying attention. Was just him. The faint snoring in his stomach brought him back to reality, but his eyes remained fixed on the couple. Ricardo seemed tired and distracted. His spoon hovered over the bowl while he looked at his cell phone. Natalia was all charm and poise. Her smile was brilliant. Her hand was resting on her chin, as if she hadn't just whispered something horrifying. Mateus felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders. His instincts were screaming at him to leave. Why get involved in this? Who would believe a boy like him, in a worn-out sweatshirt, on the fringes of a world that didn't welcome him? He swallowed hard, looking at the other customers, laughing, talking, drinking glasses. No one cared. No one even noticed him. But his gaze returned to Ricardo's spoon, now dipping into the soup. Mateus felt his chest tighten. Wasn't his imagination. He saw the woman putting something there. He knew what would happen if the old man ate it. His thoughts raced. He didn't know that man, but that didn't matter. Wrong. It was wrong. Time seemed to drag on. So without thinking, Mateus moved away from the fence and went straight to the table. His legs felt like lead, but his feet wouldn't stop. His voice broke when he shouted, "Don't eat that." Heads turned. Conversations stopped in the middle. From the sentence, the sound of a fork falling echoed through the restaurant. Ricardo stopped with the spoon inches from his mouth, his wide eyes fixed on the boy. Natalia turned her head sharply, her expression hardening. "What did you just say?" she demanded in a sharp voice. Mateus didn't hesitate, his voice trembling but loud enough for everyone to hear. "She put something in your food I saw." "Don't eat that." Whispers spread through the restaurant as all the customers turned to the scene. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mateus stood firm, his chest panting as adrenaline ran through his body. Ricardo blinked, looking from the boy to his wife. "What is he talking about?" he asked in a calm voice, but with his hand shaking as he placed the spoon on the table. Natalia's composure shattered like an overstretched rubber band. She jumped up her chair, scraping the stone floor. "You little liar," she hissed in a voice full of venom. "How dare you accuse me of something so low? Who let you in here?" The words hurt, but Mateus didn't back down. His eyes remained fixed. Ricardo's desperate for him to see the truth. "I saw her. She poured something into your soup when you weren't looking. You can smell it if you don't believe me." Ricardo's face paled as he turned to his wife, his eyes narrowed. "Natalia, what's going on?" he asked in a low but firm voice. She scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "He just wants to cause trouble. Look at him, he probably just wants money or food." She spat the words like they were poison, her gaze returning to Mateus with contempt. But the boy didn't hesitate. He approached the table, his fists clenched. "I'm not lying," he said firmly, his voice rising. "She doesn't want you to know, but I saw everything." Ricardo's hand hovered over the bowl, torn between disbelief and the doubt that was now settling in his mind. But something in the boy's tone of voice made him hesitate. The air around the table seemed to thicken. The restaurant that had been lively was now silent. All eyes were fixed on the scene there. Meals forgotten. Ricardo leaned back in his chair, studying the boy with an analytical look. His face bore the marks of a man accustomed to people playing with him, trying to take advantage of his wealth. But this was different. The boy was not intimidated. He did not look away. "Mateus?" asked Ricardo with a firm voice, although with a trace of suspicion. The boy nodded. "Yes, I am telling the truth." "Please don't eat," he said with a soft but insistent voice. Natalia let out a bitter laugh, crossing her arms as she stared at Mateus. "This is absurd," she said with an icy tone. "It is just a street urchin wanting attention. Are you really going to pay attention to this nonsense?" But Ricardo did not answer. Instead, he picked up the spoon again, bringing it close to his face. His hand trembled slightly, not out of fear, but because of the silent storm that was forming inside him. Natalia said slowly, his eyes meeting hers, "Did you hear him? What exactly is going on here?" Natalia's mask of composure cracked even more. Her lips pressed together in a thin line. I can't believe you are asking me this. Is an insult. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising. He is lying. Look at him. He probably doesn't even know who you are. Why would you trust him instead of me? The weight of her words hung in the air, but didn't have the desired effect. The crowd murmured, their eyes jumping between the three whispers floating in the air. Did she really do it? Look at her. She looks nervous. This boy doesn't seem to be making it up. The murmurs only grew. Natalia's fury. She slammed her hands on the table, her impeccable posture disappearing. Enough of this, Ricardo. Eat this damn soup and let's go. She shouted, her voice shaking with rage. But Mateus didn't back down. He took another step forward, his fists clenched. If you don't believe me, then call someone to test him, he said with his voice rising in urgency. You're rich. There are lawyers, doctors, people who can find out, but don't eat. If you eat, you'll regret it. Ricardo's jaw tightened as he turned to the bowl. The spoon was still in his hand, but he didn't bring it to his lips. His tired and calculating eyes turned to his wife. Natalia, he said in a low voice, you've been acting strange for weeks. Her face flushed and she stammered, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you really think I'm poisoning? You're poisoning me. Ricardo finished for her with a sharp tone. The crowd gasped audibly, their whispers increasing. Mateus remained firm, his gaze unwavering. He felt his heart beating fast but didn't let it show. He did what he could. Now it was up to Ricardo to make the next move. Natalia straightened, her expression hardening, becoming cold and hostile. This is ridiculous. I don't have to stay here listening to this nonsense, she said, grabbing her bag. But before she could leave, Ricardo's hand reached out, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength for a man his age. You're not going anywhere, he said firmly. Not until we find out what's going on here. The waiter, who had been paralyzed, finally said, Sir, should I call the police? The question sent a wave of tension through the restaurant, and for the first time Natalia seemed genuinely desperate. She shook her head violently. Don't you dare do that. It's just a misunderstanding, Ricardo. You can't be serious. But Ricardo raised his hand, silencing. Yes, he said, addressing the waiter without taking his eyes off Natalia. Call them. Mateus felt a relief, but it was fleeting. The truth had not yet come out, and the tension was far from over. The restaurant held its breath as the waiter ran inside to make the call. Ricardo let go of Natalia's wrist, his eyes never leaving hers. The impeccable charm she used so easily was now crumbling, replaced by a growing sense of desperation. She looked around her, lips moving but no sound coming out, desperately searching for an escape. Meanwhile, Mateus was standing a few steps away, his hands shaking slightly. He did everything he could, but now he felt the weight of doubt invading him. What if the man didn't believe him after all? What if she managed to get away with this? He clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay in place. Mateus, said Ricardo, suddenly, his voice cutting attention. You said you saw her putting something in the soup. Can you describe it? The boy nodded, quickly taking a step forward. It was a small bottle like medicines with a clear liquid. She poured it while you were looking at your cell phone and stirred the soup. I swear I saw Ricardo's face. He twitched. He turned to Natalia, who was already shaking her head. This is absurd. He's lying. Why me? But Ricardo interrupted her. Why would he lie? What could he possibly gain from this? The crowd murmured again, and the sound of sirens in the distance increased the charged atmosphere. Natalia's eyes jumped towards the soup, and for a split second her carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. She looked cornered, then, as if clinging to one last hope, she turned to Matthew. You were spying on us. You weren't trying to cause trouble because you're jealous of people who actually have something. The words hit Matthew like a slap, but he stood his ground. I'm not jealous, he said firmly. I saw what I saw and I couldn't just stand by and let you hurt him. The sirens grew louder and soon 2 police officers entered the restaurant. The room seemed to shrink as they approached the table, their hands resting on their belts. What's going on here? One of them asked in a neutral but authoritative tone. Ricardo stood up, his imposing figure still inspiring respect despite his age. Officers, I need you to take a look at this, he said, gesturing towards the bowl of soup. This kid claims my wife poisoned her. The officers exchanged glances, their expressions carefully neutral. One of them leaned forward, sniffing the soup cautiously, and turned to Natalia. Ma'am, have something to say about this? His face turned red. This is ridiculous. He's just a street urchin trying to cause trouble. Ricardo, are you really going to let this nonsense go that far? But the officer wasn't buying his excuses. We need to test the contents, he said, picking up the bowl. No, Natalia screamed, her voice rising. Her outburst of anger drew even more attention, and her sudden panic only made her look guiltier. The officer hesitated, narrowing his eyes. Ma'am, there's something you'd like to tell us before we go any further. Natalia hesitated, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She looked at Ricardo, then at the officers, her hands shaking as she clutched her purse. Finally, her resolve crumbled. All right, she spat in a low but venomous voice. You want the truth? I'm tired of living in his shadow, tired of his control over everything. He should have never made it past this year, and I. She stopped abruptly, realizing too late that she had said too much. The restaurant erupted in gasps. Some customers took out their cell phones to record the scene. Ricardo's face paled as the weight of his confession hit him like a truck. The policeman stepped forward, his expression somber. Ma'am, I'm arresting you for attempted murder. Please put your hands where I can see them. Natalia's composure completely broke. She screamed, trying to free herself as they handcuffed her. You don't understand. I deserved everything. He had everything, she screamed as they led her away, her voice echoing through the restaurant. Stunned, Ricardo sank into the chair, his hand shaking as he pushed the soup away. For a moment he didn't say anything. His face was a mask of disbelief and betrayal. Then his eyes found Mateus, who was standing there not knowing what to do. But when Ricardo's gaze softened, a flash of gratitude instituted the anger in his expression. Mateus not only saved his life, he revealed a truth that Ricardo would never have seen. The restaurant slowly returned to its low murmur as the police dig Natalia out, her protests fading into the distance. The customers exchanged wide-eyed glances, still shocked by what they had just witnessed. Some looked at Ricardo with pity, others with curiosity, but Mateus didn't move. He stood there, not knowing if he should stay or leave. Silently, Ricardo turned to the boy, his face still pale but his eyes now firm. Mateus, he said softly, gesturing to the chair in front of him. Sit down. Mateus hesitated, looking at the onlookers, but Ricardo's voice carried a weight that made him obey. Slowly he sat down in the chair, his shoulders tense. You saved my life, Ricardo said in a low but firm voice. I don't know how I can thank you. Mateus moved, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I just couldn't let that happen, he said softly. I couldn't just watch and do nothing. Ricardo nodded, his distant gaze for a moment as if reliving all the approval most people would have, he said. After a pause, they would have turned their faces away, pretending they didn't see. But you didn't. That took courage. Mateus shrugged, his voice barely above a whisper. I guess I just don't like seeing people get Hurt, that's all. Ricardo sat back, studying the boy for the first time. He seemed to really see him not just as a ragtag kid on the streets, but as someone with a story, a soul. How long have you been around here? The question took Matthew by surprise. He looked away, his voice tinged with embarrassment. Oh, Ricardo frowned but didn't press. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black cell phone. Wait here, he said, standing up and walking away to make a call. Matthew watched him, not knowing what to do. His heart was pounding with anxiety. Was he in trouble? Now Ricardo was going to call someone to move him, but when Ricardo came back, his expression was calm, almost gentle. Help is on the way, he said. Just help? Asked Matthew, frowning. Ricardo nodded. I called someone I trust. They'll make sure you have a place to sleep tonight, a safe place, and if you'll let me, I'd like to do more than that. The boy's eyes widened. You don't have to do that, he said quickly, your voice defensive. I didn't do it for money or anything like that. Ricardo smiled slightly. I know, that's why I want to help you. You did something most people wouldn't have done, and trust me, Matthew, if the world had more people like you, it would be a much better place. For the first time in a long time, Matthew felt a warmth he couldn't describe. He looked down, not knowing what to say. The restaurant customers began to disperse, but the weight of what had happened hung in the air. Ricardo picked up his glass of water, taking a sip before speaking again. Sometimes life gives us the chance to change someone else's story, he said in a thoughtful voice. You changed mine today, Matthew, and maybe, just maybe, I can help change yours. The boy looked at him, his dark eyes shining with something he had and allowed himself to feel in years. Hope. As the two remained silent, the sun continued its trajectory across the sky, casting long shadows over the restaurant. The lesson didn't go unnoticed by anyone who witnessed the event. Courage doesn't always wear a suit, and kindness doesn't always come from the rich. Sometimes it's the people we ignore who have the greatest strength of all in the end. Matthew's bravery not only saved a life, but reminded everyone in that restaurant of the power of standing up for what's right, no matter the odds. If this story moved you, be sure to subscribe and join us for more tales of courage, truth, and redemption. Share this video with someone who may need a reminder that even small actions can create life-changing impacts.